Good day everyone. Today's lesson is all about coroutines and the console in Unity. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to know and learn everything about coroutines. Discover or increase your knowledge about scripting in Unity. Gain further insights about Unity's console. Coroutines are the most helpful tools when making games in Unity. Let us consider the line of code shown below to understand what coroutines is all about. Normally, functions in your code will run from start to finish. However, sometimes we want to deliberately slow down a function or make it wait for longer than the split-second duration that it runs. A coroutine does exactly that. Let us consider an example to understand how a coroutine works. We'll create a square that switches colors every second. In order to achieve this, we will create a sprite and manipulate its color property. Then, we'll create a new script and name it as Color Changer. Double-click the script to open it up in Visual Studio. Inside our script, we'll utilize the getComponent method to reference our sprite renderer component instead of dragging and dropping it into a slot like we have done so far. Now, we'll create the code similar to the image on the screen. As you notice, we created two public color variables to select which colors we want the sprite to switch between. Then, we reference the renderer component using the getComponent. We only need to do this once, so we'll place it inside the start method. Then, the change color coroutine manages the logic of swapping colors every second. Coroutines in Unity may seem complex at first, but you'll eventually get used to its process. We just create a method that returns an IEnumerator and a yield return statement. The latter part will be essential in telling Unity to pause the script for a while. There are various ways to implement yield return, but for the meantime, we'll use the wait for seconds real-time class. This then takes a floating point value which determines how long the script should be paused in real-world seconds. You can make the interval a public variable and adjust the frequency of the color changes as well. Unity commonly uses the wait for seconds class because it is connected to scaled time. This means that when the game is paused by setting the time.timescale variable to 0, then the coroutine will also pause from counting its waiting time. The best use of coroutines are for timed methods, and the implementation of yield return statements have their own uses. Additionally, coroutines can also be used to run processes in synchronization with the main game loop. Now let's talk about the console of Unity. This part of the editor is where developer outputs can be read. It is essential in testing bits of code without adding functionality for testing. There are three types of messages that may appear in the Unity console. Errors, which prevents the code from running any further and stops the game from being playable. Warnings, which will not stop the code but can make the game run with bugs and glitches. Messages, which relays data through text and is typically for informative and testing purposes. We can output our custom messages, warnings, and errors to the console of Unity using the debug class. By default, you can find the console tab right next to the project tab at the lower portion of the screen. Console outputs mostly benefit programmers, as they are the ones who can understand and fix the messages and issues that the console outputs. Now let's try to output a custom message to the console, which notifies the programmer when the space key was pressed. We're only going to need to add a few lines of code, so it's your choice if you would like to create another script or modify an existing one. Inside the script, copy the code as shown in the image on the screen. The code checks if the space key was pressed and outputs a message in the console using the log method. We'll place it inside the update method because we want to continuously check for key presses. Now, save the script and head back to Unity to compile the scripts. Then, attach the script to a game object if you haven't yet, and hit play. If you press the spacebar, you will notice that a message will show up at the bottom left of Unity Editor. Clicking on the Console tab will show you a history of the messages that was printed out, as well as when it was printed out. You can also output warning messages using the log warning method and error messages using the log error method. These things will be essential in testing the logic of our code and quickly finding the issues without having to spend a lot of time implementing them. Here are the references for this lesson. Thank you for watching.